What's happening, everyone? My name is James Lynch, and this is the Fanatics View Hockey Show. Thank you so much for tuning in. Apologies for the backdrop. I need to wait for my guest to come on here shortly, so it actually looks normal, but my green screen does not fit the full way. But we are switching things up here on the show, on the program. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you guys have any questions, post them in the chat. I'll get to every single one of them once I get through this quick read here. We're going to be joined a little bit later by Mike Straw on the program. He's just running a bit late. He's got a few things going on with his day job as well. He's got a lot of things going on right now, but he'll be joining me here shortly to talk about the Buffalo Sabres resurgence. Last time we had Mike on, it was looking like a typical Buffalo Sabres season, them missing the playoffs and being at the bottom of the Eastern Conference, but they have been on quite the roll right now. Maybe we'll start there and look at the NHL standings. We had a lot of action in the league last night. We can get into that. There's lots of stuff to get into, guys. In fact, this will look a lot better on my green screen. There we go. Not going to look as crazy. Only a little bit of a cut off there. But we look at the standings right now. Buffalo Sabres currently in 5th place in the Eastern Conference. I don't think a lot of people would have predicted that, just because the Sabres, it's been sort of the same story every year. They can't get over the hump. So, and the hump being the playoffs right now. So it looks like they are tied with the New York Islanders, sort of 5th place right now. Things are really getting interesting in the Eastern Conference. The Leafs have made a big resurgence since last time we did the show. They are currently point out of a playoff spot, although they do have a game in hand on Pittsburgh. And then a couple teams have really faltered. New Jersey Devils have been one. We know obviously the injury earlier this year to Jack Hughes, but the whole Quinn Hughes trade that didn't happen, that certainly impacted them. The Capitals, the Flyers have slipped a little bit. They were in a better spot here. And then at the very bottom of the league is the New York Rangers, the retooling New York Rangers, not the rebuilding New York Rangers. Chris Drury with that note coming out here recently. So a lot of things to talk about. Again, Mike's going to join us here quickly, but let's get to one of our favorites here on the show. My good friend, John B, mentioning, I wanted Josh Doan to be drafted by Winnipeg so badly. He was great for ASU. Happy for Buffalo that they got him. They needed a guy with his character. Huge part of the turnaround, in my opinion. We'll definitely mention that to Mike when he hops on here. Big fan of Brody Zemer too. Hope I'm saying that right. Zemer. Hopefully he pans out in the NHL. Kid is captain written all over him. Solid player with the Golden Gophers, quite underrated. If there's one thing John knows about way better than I do, it is junior hockey and college hockey. So really cool to see John mention some of that. So that's how things are looking in the Eastern Conference right now. Again, Tampa Bay, Carolina, your typical teams. How about Detroit, though? 3rd place right now. That's been a bit of a surprise, them getting a John Gibson finally playing well. So that certainly helped out. The Canadians looking pretty strong here. And look who is joining us here right now. So happy to get him back on. I've been trying to get him on for a couple weeks. We've both been very busy. Also, apologies for not doing a show last week, guys. Both my kids were sick. I was at the hospital on Monday, but it's all good now. We're going to get back on a regular schedule here. And happy to welcome back on the program as I'm going to bring him on right here. Mike Straw. Mike Straw, how are you, sir?
I am doing great. How are you?
I'm doing awesome. You know where I wanted to start with this is I remember when I was going to get you on the show maybe 3 weeks ago, something around there. We had talked about Buffalo really turning things around. And I know you were a bit of a pessimist with the Sabres sort of run they went on. Of course, Kevin Adams getting let go, and it seemed like that sort of lit a fire under Buffalo. But here they are right now. I just mentioned it there in the standings, currently tied for 5th place. Are you more of a believer now, or are you still pessimistic about this recent turnaround for the Sabres?
The more it goes, the more I'm a believer. But I will say that watching this team is night and day with and without Josh Norris in the lineup. And that,
interesting.
It's one of those things where they're 3 points up right now of Toronto. If they were the Metro, they'd be in 2nd place. If they were in the Pacific, they'd be in 1st. It's one of those, the Atlantic is so log jammed right now that it's still, they have to play almost perfect hockey still. They can't afford a 2-game losing streak, even though they got a point in one of those two. So it still has me kind of worried of where this is actually going to go, because they're not safe by any means. They're just in the hunt.
Yeah, that's for sure. What's the overall mood, though, in Buffalo? Like, are fans finally buying in? Because it seems like, you know, there's been years in the past where they've gone on winning streaks, and maybe this is the year they make it and they don't. Is there still that, maybe is the word like cautiously optimistic? Is that, you know, sort of, resonate with the fan base, or people still being like, I'll believe it when I see it?
It's the vibes are stronger than they've been since Jack Eichel's rookie year.
Okay, good.
When Eichel came into the league, this team, the fan base, like selling out arenas, thought everything was going to be great with them. Obviously, it didn't turn out that way, but the city is excited. Games are selling out again,
awesome.
which to me is the big notion of this. Like they went from some games having 12, 13,000 people to now games are selling out. The players are excited. The players are feeding off that energy. Fans are feeding off of it. This is the closest feeling we've gotten to the mid 2000s that we've had in 20 years. And it's just, I may be on the more pessimistic side because I've had my heart broken way too many times.
Right. Yeah.
But to see the reaction of it, like my 4-year-old is asking to watch Sabres games. And we've talked about that in the past, you and I, about I go around the city and I see people wearing Vegas Golden Knights jerseys with Eichel.
Yeah.
I see people wearing Penguins jersey. Like I'm seeing younger people, like when I go out shopping, they are in Sabres gear again. And it's insane that it's in this 2-month window. That's what's happened. We've seen a complete flip.
What would you say has been sort of the biggest reason for this turnaround? I mean, obviously, whenever you make a big change like they did with Kevin Adams, which I know you were telling me even this, like for the longest time, like why was he still in charge? You know, that was sort of it seemed like that was the elephant in the room, and they finally get rid of the elephant. They got a GM now in Jarkko Kekalainen, who obviously has a lot of experience being the GM of Columbus. But what team-wise has really stood out to you as far as what is working for Buffalo right now in this sort of resurgence?
On the ice, now it's funny enough, they started this run, the win streak and whatnot, in Kevin Adams' final 3 games, right? That's the irony of it. This is Kevin Adams' team doing this. So there's that talk of, if the Sabres make the playoffs, does Kevin Adams win GM of the year?
Right. Yeah. That's
his team.
Yeah.
But no, on the ice, we are seeing Buffalo do something that they haven't done since the beginning of like the Don Granato era. They just didn't have the talent at the time, or the developed talent. They are attacking. Their transition game up the ice is at this point one of the best in the league. You watch how they break out. Most of their goals are on the rush. Yesterday were against Montreal or Nashville, beg pardon. You're seeing goals happen around the net with pucks to the net. That's different, but more often than not, even in the game against Carolina on Monday, their goals, their best opportunities are happening in transition, and their defense is playing aggressive. They have this like trust. And it's not to say that the goaltending has been great, because last night it wasn't. Lyon did have to make a few saves. Monday it was fantastic. Carolina, that game felt like a playoff game, even though they lost. But you're seeing a team that's playing with confidence that you haven't seen before. You have a line. You have Josh Doan playing. My God, what that trade has turned out well for both teams. There's no denying it. That is a perfect hockey trade. Ended up fantastic. And you're at the point of like, though with each passing game, you're wondering what the price of Doan's contract is going to be as he heads to RFA status. But you're again, to go back, you are watching a very confident team. They're not afraid to attack. And that's what you were wondering about back last year and years prior. You'd see defensemen not want to pinch up. You'd see forwards leaving the zone too soon because they felt like they had to get back because they didn't have any trust in the back end. Well, the goaltending overall has been playing better. Not great, but better. And you're getting timely saves when you need them. I mean, you have 2 goalies who are under a 285 goals against, both over 900 save percentage. This isn't something we've seen in years. So when you have that trust in the goaltending, even if they do give up some untimely goals still, it makes it easier to feel like, all right, we can take some chances here.
Well, and I think it helps that you have such a strong start here. 3 goals in the first period. That's what you want to see. And I'm sure from the goaltending standpoint, hey, you guys are helping me out here. You're getting some goals. That's got to feel good for the team as well. One name that has really stood out to me in this sort of run as well as Peyton Krebs. Obviously someone that, I think the expectations should, have been high for him and hasn't maybe really met that. But you look last night, goal and an assist. I like the defensive game he sort of added in here as well. Like, how much is it that we're seeing, we see this with a lot of teams, right? Like with San Jose this year, we've seen some maturity from some of their players. I mean, Celebrini, which is crazy to say maturity because he's only still a teenager and he's, lighting it up right now. But you're seeing certain teams where that maturity is finally coming to fruition. And do you feel like that's part of it too, where you have this young team and now they're finally hitting their stride and everything's coming together?
Yeah, it's been incredible. Like Peyton Krebs, you mentioned, he has been such a spitfire for the team as he gets more playing time. Now he's become an empty net goal merchant.
Yeah.
Let's be real. Like he's got 5 goals this year. I think 3 or 4 of them are empty netters. Mm-hmm. But he's putting himself in a position to get those, where the Sabres historically have not been really good at taking advantage of the empty net. If anything, the goal ends up in their net when the opponent's goalie's pulled. So you see Zach Benson, who has turned into this team's rat. We've talked about it before, about how I compare him a lot to Brad Marchand. He is turning into that. He is getting under people's skins. I mean, we saw there was a interview that Tage Thompson did a couple weeks ago where he called him the dumbest person he knows. And he meant it as a compliment because of just how he plays the game. And it was like watching these players grow and actually feel comfortable in what they are and just figure out their role has been kind of the most impressive of all of this last 2 months, especially because you have to remember, it's only been a couple months. It's not like, oh, the season started great and here they go. No, they had to win 10 games in a row and go 15-2 in a 17-game stretch just to get to this point. And they're still not safe. Like if they started the season even playing 500 hockey, you're looking at them being up there with Tampa Bay fighting for the top of the Atlantic, but they didn't. Like it took a lot of digging. And then there's that worry though, do the legs get tired and does the burnout hit? Do they hit that wall? And that's where my mind comes in. Like at what point do you start figuring out, all right, what are the next moves?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I wanted to get a couple of John's questions, and one of them he had in here that I was going to ask too. But first, we were going to talk about Josh Doan. I wanted Josh Doan to be, he's a Winnipeg guy. He's great for ASU, happy for Buffalo. They got him, needed a guy with his character, huge part of the turnaround. And then he also mentions here what was it here? Mike is right. Patera has been really good in Utah, but Josh Doan is the diamond. So yeah, I mean, you just like seeing that where a trade does benefit both teams. A change of scenery could benefit both teams. And again, they play different roles too. Like I think for Josh Doan, just bringing that overall game has been good. Obviously Paterka has been playing well for Utah. There's always been that issue of the defense, but it doesn't really matter with a team like Utah, the way they play. So that's been a nice story. And then obviously Josh with the, I know everyone knows his dad, right? So that's kind of cool about how it's worked out for him in Buffalo, which is great. He also mentioned another name here, Brody Ziemer. I hope I'm saying that right. Hopefully he pans out in the NHL. Kid as captain written all over him. Solid player for the Golden Gophers, quite underrated. Do you know much about him?
Yeah, he was captain of the U.S. junior national team at the World Juniors. Sabres draft pick, Sabres prospect, and he's one of the ones where I look at when you look at who the Sabres have currently in Rochester, it makes sense to start moving some of those assets out.
Yeah.
I don't know if he's going to stay in Minnesota after this year. I would not be surprised if they try and say, come to the AHL, get your pro career started. He's got that. He makes me think of a Benson, not necessarily in the scrappy way, but just the potential. Like there is a ceiling here that is high, like upper echelon, but it's just the worry of the development. And I think the way the Sabres have been developing their young players lately, it makes me think that what you've seen with Benson and what you're seeing with Helenius now and Oslin, they might use that to convince him, hey, turn pro after this season, have a strong season, finish out the year in Minnesota, and then make the jump. Because he is, when it comes to Sabres prospects, he is the one I'm highest on the most.
Okay. Quite the endorsement. Okay, I was going to get to this later, but John brought it up already. What do you think the Sabres will do with the Tuck contract situation? Obviously, that's looming a bit. I know Kekalainen's come out and sort of talked a bit about it, but how do you think this is going to pan out? Do you think he stays? And if he doesn't, is this time to look elsewhere and try and, take advantage of that asset?
I'm going to go with two answers. I'm going to go with what I think and what I want.
Okay.
What I think happens is they bend over and they give him what he wants. They give him the 11 mil or whatever he wants. Mm-hmm. What I would like to see happen is he's traded. Mm-hmm. This has nothing to do with him as a person. Obviously, like there's obviously that locker room dynamic that you have to think about before you trade a guy like Tuck, who's very beloved in that team. But do I really want to pay $11 million a year And I know the salary cap's going up. We're going to see some really ridiculous contracts this summer. Really nuts contracts. But do I think that you should pay $11 million plus whatever it is for somebody who's going to be 30 years old and sign them to like a 7-year, $77 million, $80 million deal? No, I do. No. I could see going to that if you're going to say, you know what, let's do 3 years, 35 mil. I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
I've also, people who know me and have followed my work know how I feel on terms and contracts. I don't believe in signing players to terms longer than 4 years max. Yeah. I just don't. I never have, and I never will think that 4 years is beyond 4 years is where you should sign a player. And that's going, I wouldn't even sign McDavid to 4 years, to beyond 4 years. You just revisit. And I get, you can look at like, well, if I give Tuck, 11 mil, well, I still have Tage Thompson on the biggest steal of the century at 7.1 until 2030. Well, then, yeah. And then who knows what happens by then? He's going to be 33 years old. What will his contract be 5 years from now? Josh Norris, you don't know what you're doing with. Can't stay healthy, but man, his impact on the ice is undeniable. You need another top 6 forward in this team. So it's one of those, like, do you treat Tuck as your own rental at that point? Because at the end of the day, he is one of the best penalty killers in the league.
Yeah.
There is no denying that is where his strength is. He's still going to get you 60, 70 points a season, and he's going to be a top penalty killer. So is that worth the 11 million a year or more? I don't know. And this just might be my closed-mindedness because of how hockey contracts have been for the past 20 years since the salary cap. Seeing it jump as much as it's about to this year, next year, and the year beyond, where we're going to be in the salary space of plus $100 million for salary cap up to 110, 20, whatever it decides to go to. I just don't know if he's the player to kickstart that, but he is going to be one of the first dominoes to fall.
Yeah. Yeah. And they got to make a decision. And listen, I'm 100% like you're saying this as if it's like, like a hot take almost. Like, I agree. I think a lot of people feel this way, that there is, if you look in the past, if you look at past contracts, I'll even use the Vancouver example. When they re-signed JT Miller, there were a lot of people like, what are you doing signing him to that contract? Like, this is a guy, like, those contracts never age well. The players over 30, or in the case of, Tuck's going to be 30 here pretty soon. Especially, like, the only way I would say you do that if you're Florida, right? Like, Florida was willing to offer term to these guys because they think there's a window, and, whatever means necessary to keep them. Understandable. We'll figure it out later. I understand that. But I think in the case of Buffalo, are they a cup contender? No. So why would you invest that much capital into someone with a team that there's a bit of that unknown? Whereas if you got rid of that cap hit, you traded the asset, got more prospects. And like you mentioned, a lot of good things in the system allow younger players to play. I think that's the better move. So I'm with you 100%. Like, again, these players that are over 30, those contracts do not age well for the most part. And I'll use the Miller example even more. Canucks fans were like, oh, here we go. Like, the team's imploding. They traded JT Miller. How's JT Miller playing in New York this year? Not very good. Right? Like, there's already Rangers fans who are regretting the trade because he is playing injured. He's not doing the things that they want him to do. And look where the Rangers are in the standings. They're at the bottom of the league. And I think the fact that Miller's captain and he's at the bottom there is no coincidence. I don't think he's the game changer that some Rangers fans expected, but that's an example of a player who at the time they signed him to a long-term contract and a player that was hitting 30. So I'm with you there. I avoid those at all costs. I think you need to get younger and play within and it's a cap thing too. Like, yes, the cap's going up, but also you have to allocate certain spots. You've got, Peyton Krebs, who we just mentioned. He's an RFA next year. He's going to get a bump. So all these little things sort of add up. So I agree with you. I think you trade Tuck unless he's going to give you a team-friendly deal. Yeah,
exactly. I mean, you're looking at the 26, 27 salary cap being 104 mil,
something like that. Yeah,
the ceiling. So yeah, I don't think he's going to give a 2 team-friendly deal. He seems to be set. He wants at least 10.5, according to the reports out there. I mean, Kevin Adams basically said what he wanted. After Kevin Adams got fired, he ran to the media and leaked out what Tuck was wanting. So, no sour grapes at all from him. But I just don't know if I could get it, because I'm looking at, Benson's a UFA or RFA.
RFA, yeah.
20. Doan 23. Doan is probably getting 6 or 7 million at least.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised to see him at 8.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to then think of that. Norris is on your books until 2030 as well. And what's going on there? Yeah, I mean, you got contracts coming off next year. Yarmo, I'm not envious of the situation Yarmo is in.
Yeah, I know it's going to be tough.
Because he's got two big RFAs. Like Krebs, you can maybe put in there, but we'll see. I think if anything, he jumps up to like 2.5, not much. But you have big ones in Benson and Doan this year. The following year, you have Ostlund, who's clearly one of your future top 6. If he's not already there now. You got Cooley coming up. You eventually got Helenius coming up. There's a lot of decisions that have to be made, and that's where I'm sitting there going, all right, Tuck might have to be the odd man out, and so does, like, there's a name on the screen right there too, Jack Quinn. It's got 1 year left after this year. I think with what they have in the pipeline and what Yarmo might want to do, that Quinn could be looking at being the odd man out, or the fellow odd man out as far as the young squad.
Mm-hmm. And you can't do that thing, and this is something notorious here in Vancouver, where like the fans fall in love with like, you know, certain players, right? And it's like, you know, but you have to look at the overall scale of things long term. You can't just say, oh, because I like this guy and he's great, that we got to keep him. Like, sometimes it's for the best. I mean, you know, I always bring up the Colorado example from years ago where they had to make a choice with Matt Duchene, and they made that big trade, and that really set them up for the future, where they end up getting McKinnon. They end up revamping their core, which ended up, you know, being something a lot better. And I think sometimes you just have to, sometimes if the mix doesn't work, it doesn't work. This looks like the mix works, but utilize your assets. Don't, you know, double down on something that might not, you know, work out for you better long term. So that's kind of interesting. That kind of brings me to the next question as well too. Like, I think I kind of know the answer to this, but I would imagine the Sabres have a little bit of cap room. Obviously, the Tuck thing's going to dictate things, but Sabres are going to be buyers, I would imagine, at the deadline, right? Especially with the position they're in. I mean, do you get that sense that this is, you know, not that maybe they can go for a cup this year, but you want to make the playoffs to give the fans some sort of relief for being, I think they're the longest team that hasn't made the playoffs.
Yeah, they're currently, you know, 14 years. They're tied with the New York Jets as the longest in major North American sports.
Yeah.
Jets are at 15 seasons now. Sabres would be if they miss. My hope is the Sabres make it solely so the Jets hold that record alone, because I hate the New York Jets. But that's a conversation for another day. You know, it's tough for me whether or not they're going to be buyers or sellers. I don't think they're going to be sellers.
Yeah.
But I think Yarmo's going to be smart in the deals he makes, where he doesn't seem like one this year to make a trade just to try and go for it in a year when they don't think they can win the Stanley Cup. He said it as an introductory press conference. This isn't just about making the playoffs. This is about building a team that can win a Stanley Cup. So I don't see him, maybe I'm wrong, I don't see him pulling of what he did in Columbus when he went out and got Panarin, got Duchene, had Bobrovsky, and had that run, knowing he was renting basically a run. I don't see that. I don't see him going out for a Panarin. I don't want him to go out for a Panarin. I don't want that baggage. If people don't know, there's a lot of off-ice issues, a lot of not so great off-ice issues surrounding Panarin. I don't want that on my roster when they're just finally getting to this comfortable point where they feel like they can succeed. You do not want to throw in those questions.
Yeah.
One player that I would be interested in is a Blake Coleman.
Yeah.
But it's just wondering who, like, if Pittsburgh falls out, do you try and trade for an Evgeny Malkin, who says he wants to play one more year? His contract's coming up. Like, what do you do there? Do you go in for a rental with Jason Robertson from Dallas? You know, he can put up point per game plays. Let's put it this way. That would be a move I would make if you know you're not re-signing Tuck.
Yeah.
You try and
the age thing fits, right? With Robertson being younger and just
you trade
the upside. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm looking to Dallas and I'll go, I'll give you a Tuck, a first, and something else. Give me Robertson. And then you bust your ass to sign Robertson to an extension. But you do that move sooner rather than later. But with Robertson, you're getting a guy who you know can put up near 100 points a season. It's just one of those things of like, I just don't know how aggressive Yarmo's going to be year one. I know he did tell the players and this is on record from the players, that everyone is expendable in that locker room. No one's safe.
Yeah.
He will deal everybody and anybody if he thinks it can make the team better. And it seemed like that woke up a lot of kids. And I'm going to call him at this point. I'm, approaching 40. Right. Everybody's a kid.
Yeah. No. We're the same age. So yeah, I'm with you. I use the same terminology. Let me ask you this just real quick, because you brought it up. Is Bowen Byram, is that still a thing? Like, or do you think, even though he's not on like a long contract, do you think there's a possibility of them parting ways with him? Because I know even though they re-signed the contract, it wasn't the long-term thing I think he wanted, and I still think he wants to be the number one guy.
The more he plays, his price goes up. I know more teams are calling about his availability.
Yeah.
If it happens, it's a move that happens in the offseason. They are not going to trade him in the season unless it's for a monster of a hockey trade. That's kind of how I feel about Owen Power as well. Mm-hmm. Owen Power, there are a lot of people that want him shown the door. Mm-hmm. I am one of those. I would do it again for a blockbuster hockey trade. I'm not trading anything for picks at this point.
No, of course not. No, absolutely.
If I see one trade where it's, hey, we traded Alex Tuck for a first round pick and a third round pick,
yeah,
I might regrow my hair just to lose it again.
Pull it out. Exactly, for sure. Well, no, I bring up Byron as well because, in these parts, obviously Bowen Byron played junior hockey here in Vancouver, and one of the names that is out there right now, and I know his agents are not happy about, is Elias Pettersson. Now, Pettersson has played better this year, especially on the defensive side. He's played a lot more well-rounded, but you're paying a guy 11-6, and you're doing this sort of rebuild now. I don't think people see Pettersson as part of that plan. There's been ties there. I'm wondering if there's a fit there with Byram, maybe coming back, and then but you just said though too, like Pettersson doesn't really fit the bill because he's getting close to 30 as well. The only difference is though he's like a true center, right? So there would be, because there's this thought, Mike, that like if Pettersson goes to a different team, he will get back to his old self. It just isn't going to work in Vancouver. Would you take a risk like that, knowing that there's the potential of him becoming the old Pettersson?
It's tough. It depends on what they ask for him.
Yeah.
My biggest problem with Pettersson is it seems like he's fallen out of favor with the locker room there. And
yeah, that's true. Yeah.
And I'm at the point where you finally have the locker room in a good place. It's why I don't want Panarin. Mm-hmm. Do I want somebody that might turn out to be a headache when the locker room they have in place is strong? Mm-hmm. They're young still, like this is a new experience for them, but it's still a tightly packed group. And I just, do you want to risk that with a guy who's been, people are out there and you see it online, you see it being Vancouver, takes plays off, takes shifts off, takes games off.
It's the work ethic. That's the big thing. The whole thing with Miller started last year because he didn't come in shape, and then he had the injury and he wasn't playing through it, and there was all this stuff. So there's some questions about his work ethic. I think that's big. He isn't Evander Kane. Evander Kane's like, it was so funny because like in the offseason, everyone was talking about, there was a culture issue in the locker room, and then they trade for Evander Kane. It's like, what are you doing? Like, yes, he's from Vancouver, but like that's the last thing you need. And of course it's been a disaster. Now they're hoping just to get back what they got for Evander Kane, which they might not even get that because he's just been a disaster. I had David Quadrelli on here a month ago from Canucks Army, and he's like, there might be a world where Evander Kane doesn't even play in the league next year. Like, that's how bad he's been. So we'll see. Yeah. But it's going to be interesting. I bring up the Pettersson thing because, again, there has been talk for a while that the Canucks have really circled in on Bowen Byram, and I do wonder if maybe there's a fit there where, you do a Pettersson Byram, and there'd have to be some other pieces, obviously, that would fit there. But I'm just wondering because I think there will be some team. But the big thing, too, is Pettersson has the no-move clause, so it's really up to him whether he wants to go or not. So, but I do wonder there will be teams who might think, hey, we could get the old Pettersson here, and we wouldn't have to give up a whole lot because Pettersson's not the old Pettersson, right? So
yeah. And I guarantee Yarmo's had that conversation with his staff.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah.
Sure. But there's also, you have to think any move that's being made is done not knowing who the coach is going to be next year.
Yeah, that's true too. Yeah, I do. Do you see Ruff like being, because that's part of it too. Yeah.
I think Lindy's gone. I think Lindy moves up in the team.
Oh yeah, he'll be like royalty. I'm surprised they haven't built a statue of him already.
They haven't even built one of Hasek yet.
Right, yeah, that's true, yeah.
And that was that was told, I remember, told to me directly by former Sabres president Ted Black 14 years ago that the plans were in the works for a Dominic Hasek statue next around where they have the statue of the French Connection, and it's never happened. So
I told you I met him, right, when I was a kid. Did I tell you about this?
Hasek, no.
1998 All-Star Games in Vancouver. My dad surprised me. He knew some guy that worked at one of the stick companies. I want to say it was it was like one of those six companies that doesn't exist anymore. Not Easton, but like Hessler. I started with an H. I can't remember the name of it. Anyways, we ended up getting to go to the game, and then there was like this after party that my dad got us into, and it was more like a banquet thing. And I'm getting some chicken parm or something. There's Dominic Hasek, and I'm like, oh my God, because I watched this guy growing up, obviously, and got to shake his hand, and it was really cool. And yeah, it was awesome. And he's big guy, obviously, too. So
yeah,
yeah.
He's
a legend. I mean,
I'll argue with everybody. He's the greatest goalie of all time.
You won't hear a dispute from me on that. He was lights out when I was a kid. I love watching him. I mean, that was the golden era of the goalies, right? Like now, obviously, you have a couple goalies that really stand out, but like it's so different now than it was in the '90s, where like you had your Brodeur, Waugh, Hasek, Curtis Joseph, Ed Belfour. Like it was just a crazy time for goalies, and that was like a big thing. Like if you had a good goalie, you could always rely on that, right? So,
exactly.
Yeah, it was super cool. John, another question here about the draft. Are you excited about the draft coming, and are you going to be going?
I'll be there if somebody wants to hire me to cover it. That's the only way I would go to a draft. Yeah. Granted, I watch the drafts at home and stuff, but for me to sit in an arena and watch a bunch of players become richer in a day than I'll ever be. No, I'm excited for it. Aside from the fact it's decentralized, I think that was the dumbest thing they've done.
I agree. Yeah.
The NHL had something great. People liked the fact it was centralized because it made it different from every other draft again. And then they go in. Last year's was shit. Mm-hmm. Part of my language. It was awful.
Swear away here, by the way. It's all good by me.
But like I covered the 2016 draft for the Hockey Writers. It was
no way. That's awesome.
I had my credentials hanging up right here. I love this thing.
Yeah.
And but it's one of those. I would gladly do it again if somebody wants to hire me, but I won't go as a fan. Just solely because it's a situation of just, especially with it being not being decentralized, you don't have like when you're in that arena back before it changed and you watch all the tables. The best thing about that draft was watching the GM from one team run over to the table for another team, and then the conversations, and then being media. Oh, I happen to be, within earshot. And you can hear what's going on. You kind of get an idea. Like that was the coolest part of it. You don't have that anymore. So it's one of those great for the city, great for the team. I'd rather have an all-star game here.
Yeah, no, for sure. That makes sense. Hespler was the name of the hockey stick brand. So shout out to John for mentioning that. I did the draft a couple of years ago in Vegas at the Sphere. That's the only time I've ever covered an NHL draft because the UFC was on at the same time. So I was already there, and I got media credentials and I went, and that was the Celebrini draft. So I got like one question in with Celebrini, and T. Ginla was there, and that was a strong draft too. It was pretty cool being at the Sphere, but it was fun. I'd love to do it again if I ever get the opportunity, just to check it out here. So
I mean it's fun. It is worth it. I just I don't know, like the best part about it was getting that experience from the management. Like I remember talking to teams during there. I wrote a story for the Hockey Writers about how fans and teams just loved how Buffalo handled, especially for a city not filled with hotels. Mm-hmm. It's a big reason why they haven't had the NFL draft here yet. They have to figure that out still. But the positivity and the praise they got for how they put on the draft in 2016, like that was the best story I wrote that entire weekend. None of the players drafted. It was about how fans and teams and other executives felt about what Buffalo did for putting on that draft. Those are the stories you're not going to get anymore. Because you're not going to get other teams in the city. Like you're going to get some, but you're not going to get the scouts, the head scouts, the GM, and everybody in the city.
Yeah, that's a good point. Darcy Regier would have been the GM back then, right? Or is that even before him?
2016?
Yeah.
No, Darcy Regier was gone in 2014.
Oh, he was? Okay, I was close.
Yeah, so that was Tim Murray.
Tim Murray, that's right. Yeah, I was trying to remember that for sure. Let's look at the standings here quickly before we get out of here. How do you sort of project things are going to play out here? Because it is a really weird year, right? Because of the Olympic schedule and, just teams playing more condensed schedule. It is a bit of parity this year. And you mentioned, the discrepancy here, like the Eastern Conference, right? some of the points here for some of these teams are way higher than what you're seeing in the West. Like the West is totally wide open right now. Outside of like your top 3 teams, outside that, I mean, you got teams that are, San Jose's in a playoff spot at 53 points, and then you look on the other side, Ottawa's in 14th. They've got the same amount of points. So let's start with the East. Like, how do you think things are going to pan out? Do the Sabres make the playoffs?
I'm gonna say yes right now solely because they're managing. They're 2-1-1 since Josh Norris left the lineup. And my thought was when Norris got hurt and he was going to be week to week, that everything was going to fall off the rails. It hasn't fallen off the rails. They've had some really bad, like yesterday's game against Nashville started great. Nashville, the last 30 minutes of that game, owned the Sabres. It looked like the Sabres were tired after back-to-back. But this is a case of they're on a 5-game road trip right now. Like, if they get to a point where they're still in a playoff spot by the Olympic break, then I see them making the playoffs. That's kind of where I'm set. Yeah. What bothers me is looking at the thing at the screen. I hate the fact we don't do 1-8.
Oh, so dumb.
We do the wild card because right now, Buffalo, like I said, I mean, granted, they're only 3 points up, 9th. But when you look at the wild card race and whatnot, they're in the first wild card spot. So they'd have to face the Carolina Hurricanes in the first round. Whereas if they do the 1-8, they'd be facing Montreal. Montreal's a matchup, playoff matchup. I'd love to see. It just harkens back to the 90s.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
The 80s and 90s with me. Well, 80s I wasn't around for. And
90s,
but,
same era.
Yeah,
I know. Yeah.
But it just takes me back to those runs. But having to go against Carolina or Tampa Bay in the first round, and you're like, oh, this is fantastic. Granted, and right now, again, they'd be in the 5th spot. Will that be the case at the end of the season? Maybe, maybe not. But if it is a situation where we get to the end of the year and the first wildcard team, whether it's Buffalo, whether it's Toronto, whether it's Boston, is better than 2-3 and finishes higher than 2-3 in the Metro, and you're looking at, the 5th best team in the conference has to go against the best team in the conference in the first round, then you're looking at a case where you're just like, what are we doing here?
Yeah.
And I know the NHL was like,
in Dallas, remember in the first round, like that should have been an Eastern or a Western Conference final, but we had to see it early on. Right. And then the Avs are out in the first round. So,
yeah, exactly. And now the Avs are mad and they're going to win it all. So it doesn't really matter where the Sabres finish.
Yeah. Well, maybe not. You know what? Like, what is it? Because they're probably going to win the President's Trophy. Isn't it like, what's that stat that the President's Trophy winner generally doesn't do very well in the play? It wasn't the Jets was the President's Trophy last year.
Yeah. And
they didn't make it all the way, right?
No. So that's it. But Colorado, man, something else. Also,
awesome.
On the Sabres front, when it comes to Carolina, like season ends today, they face Carolina.
Yeah.
They haven't won in Carolina since Barack Obama was president.
That's true. Yeah.
2016 was the last time they won in Carolina.
Mm-hmm. Is that overall, or are you just talking playoffs?
Overall.
Oh, overall, yeah.
They have not won.
They haven't
made the playoffs.
Yeah, that's true. Yes, of course. Yeah. Yeah.
But no, they haven't won in Carolina since 2016. So the thought of facing them in the first round has me going, I don't think so.
But the thing with Carolina that I look at, honestly, because they have that, what is it? Bussey's the goalie. They have the one that's like been playing lights out. I do wonder about that. Like, you've got a hot hand, you got a hot goalie. We've seen this in the past where goalies get hot, and like look at Seelovs a couple of years ago with Vancouver, and he led them obviously pretty far in the playoffs. But I do wonder about that. That's always been a question mark with Carolina for me, is their goaltending, where they've never had like a really solid, like, yeah, they have Freddie Anderson, but that's one. And I guess you could say the same thing about Buffalo, but that's one area I do wonder about them, where it's like, that's where I could see a little. What's it? The little dent in their armor, so to speak. I could see. So
that's I mean, we've seen it with goalies before. I mean, I go back to 2008 with Steve Mason in Columbus. Columbus made the playoffs for the first time ever as a franchise because they had a hot rookie goaltender.
Yeah,
we're seeing that in Carolina. The only difference is Carolina's a damn good team around that goaltender.
Structured. Yeah, exactly.
Whereas Columbus really wasn't. Though, I mean, what Bussey's doing. 18 wins in his first 22 games, like that of his career, a career AHLer, and he's doing like it's unheard of. And maybe this is the year Carolina finally pieces it together and gets back to the finals. I hope not, but maybe it is.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm a notorious Carolina Hurricanes hater on this show, so
Me too. I will never forget 2006
Well,
Ever.
that's not it. No, my reasoning is, and I don't know if I've talked to you about this. I talked about this with every one of my guests. I just don't like how the media acts like they're the greatest team ever, and they never get any criticism. Like they butchered 2 trades now, and they got no flack about either of them. The Jake Getzel trade, he ends up leaving, right? And then the Rantanen trade, you trade for a guy who doesn't even want to be there. Like how, I guess, part of that too was that he kind of changed his mind when he got there. But like, how do you not do your due diligence on like a guy that you give this huge haul to, and then he's like, yeah, trade me? Like that could have really blown up for them. So I just feel like they,
And yet
for whatever
it
reason,
still
never
doesn't
get any criticism.
No, but it's one of those things. The fact that it didn't blow up in their face,
Yeah,
shows just how good of an organization they are. Where they're like, we
I'll
got
give them
things in
that.
the pipeline, we're fine.
Yeah, I'll give them that. I just feel like they never get any criticism at all, ever, as an organization from the media. I just noticed that. There's certain teams that I see across the league that are always like, they're doing everything amazing. Meanwhile, Carolina hasn't gotten to a final in forever, right? They keep losing in the Eastern Conference.
Yeah, exactly. But they're
I know, and a lot of teams would love to be there. I get that. I told you I'm a hater, so I gotta.
oh yeah,
at least
yeah,
I'm
and
acknowledging
it frustrates me, but
Yeah.
it's the same time of like, how do they keep doing it? That I think that's the weird thing. How do they keep going? I mean, they went and signed Nikolai Ehlers in the offseason, and I mean, he's what, 39 points in 50 games.
Yeah.
Like he's it just fits in. He just fits. Like they seem to make the moves where they just fit, and if they don't fit, they move them out, and they still get something for it. And then whatever they do ends up working. Like I don't get it. Same with Tampa Bay.
Yeah.
Tampa Bay, everybody thought this was the year of the fall off, and then they go and rattle off, 11 straight wins and 13 and 14, and they're back up at the top, and like whatever. Like they're just never falling off.
You know what about Tampa Bay though that I'll say that I do respect is like they know when to like cut assets. Like them. I remember them getting rid of Stamkos. There was all this like, how could you do this to your franchise guy? And look, he hasn't been doing. I mean, he's doing better now, but I mean, in Nashville, he has not been the game changer that they thought he would be. But they knew, just like McDonough, right? Remember they traded McDonough to Nashville, and they're like, okay, like we need to allocate our cap better, and then they end up getting him back for less than what they gave up, right? So
yeah, exactly. So it's
Julian Breezewalk, great GM, great coach, and John Cooper. Part of that comes
and
together.
people thought Cooper was going to be on the outs after last year, and he just proves why. To me, I know we've been talking Sabres, but if I'm looking at Jack Adams winners, like there's no Colorado's just an all-star team.
Yeah.
What Tampa Bay has been able to do, like to me, that's Jack Adams. What Cooper's been able to do
I'm not
on a season where the expectations weren't there, like that's Jack Adams worthy to me. But let's be real, it's probably going to go to Martin St. Louis or Todd McClellan.
Like, I was just going to say McClellan. It's going to be a team that overachieved. Like, they always do that. Like Rick Tocchet winning in a couple years ago with the Canucks. Like no one saw that. It'll be if Detroit keeps moving up, then
let's put it, if Detroit, Montreal, and Buffalo all make the playoffs, that's going to be the toughest Jack Adams winner I've ever seen.
It'll be whoever finishes the higher. Like so, if it's Detroit, then it'll be Todd McClellan. But we'll see there. Quick last comment here. Cam Ward used to be my minor hockey goalie. So I loved watching him win the cup and the Conn Smythe. Cam Ward, I felt like won the cup, and then I know he was with Carolina for a while, and then didn't he have like 1 year with like Chicago or some random team, and then he just sort of disappeared. It was weird.
Yeah, and I don't want to hear about. I don't want to even acknowledge it. I don't want to acknowledge Cam Ward or anything.
Okay,
I don't want to acknowledge anything 2006 related. Don't want to acknowledge.
Yeah, fair enough. Mike, you're the best. Thanks again for doing this. We'll definitely get you back on, maybe closer to trade deadline or whatever. We'll see where the Sabres are at this point. But before we go, congrats on the new gig. We haven't had you on since obviously you got the new gig. So maybe tell our audience a little bit about that and anything else you got going on before you get out of here.
Yeah, you can find me. Most of my work is covering gaming over at insidergaming.com. I am executive editor there. I just got a nice little promotion. I also cover the Buffalo Bills for billsroundtable.com. That's a new vertical. Roundtable is a company that works hand in hand with the hockey news, and they decided to start a football vertical basically. And I'm lead reporter for the Bills site there. And then hockey coverage, it's my Twitter feed at Mike Star Media, and it's whoever is hiring freelancers. Basically, I'm just stringing myself to whoever needs coverage here and there because I'm already tied down to 2 places. I want to keep tying myself down.
Yeah, that's good. By the way, did that angry reply guy finally stop going after you? Remember the anonymous guy? No, he's still after you after all these days? That's crazy, man.
Nonstop. Hasn't stopped. It's fun to look at every now and then just to feel better about myself.
Yeah.
Though if I don't have a hater, then I'm not good enough at my job. So
exactly. I got some too. There we go. Guys, I will be back next week. I know we missed last week, but should be back on a regular schedule. The usual time, 12 p.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. That's Mike Straw. This is me. I will be back next week. Hope you guys have a great rest of your week, and we'll talk to you next week. Take care, guys. See you later.